Alrighty. Hello, 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 everybody. Hello, how's everybody doing today? Tonight? Night? Yeah, it's evening time. Not. How's everybody doing this evening? I hope everybody is doing fantastic tonight. We're here for another Math 102 section. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. Just a couple of minutes, and then we'll get going here, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Hopefully you guys are doing absolutely fantastic this fine evening. Alrighty. Got a few people in the room. That's good. That's good. Everybody doing good? Everybody doing good? Got a fine evening going on. Alright. Good stuff, everybody. Alrighty. Got a few things to take care of here today. Get another couple minutes in, then we'll be good. Alright. I missed that thing. Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Well, we'll get started here. Yep. We will get started here and we will get going here, and hopefully we'll have a few more people join us. If not, then it's just, well, it's just me and just a couple people. But that's just fine, too. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Now, let me turn down the volume to this music. Oh, maybe that's a little too low. So you'll try this. Okay. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's do some intros. Let's get going here, and let's get started with some new material. Alright. Okay, let's get started today. Welcome back to Thursday, end of the week time today. So, today, just as a friendly reminder, remember that at 11:59 tonight, that all your tests for chapters 5 to 7 and your tests and homework for chapters 5 to 7 will be due tonight at 11:59 p.m. If you have not done so already, just to get on that after today's class. Alright. Hopefully everybody's doing well here today. So today, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be going ahead and doing the second and third sections here of Chapter 9. Now, honestly speaking, Chapter 9 is only technically 2 sections, as the third section here in Section 9.3 is going to be a review section of the 9.1 and 9.2, but we will discuss about that here at the end of class. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at Section 9.2. And what we're going to be working with here today is we're going to be working with another type of distribution, which is a little similar to the normal distribution, but just slightly a bit different as well. Okay, so we're going to be, of course, finding confidence intervals with that particular distribution. All right, so let's go to the big board here, and let's see exactly what we're working with. All right. So today we're going to be talking about a T distribution. And that is what the goal and focus is for here today, is a T distribution of some variety. Okay, so What exactly is this t-distribution? Now, essentially, think of it as like, it's like a normal distribution, our bell-shaped curve, but maybe a little bit flatter. Okay, so with a little bit flatter here, but follows the same kind of similar set of properties, as you can see here on the screen, as a normal distribution. Of course, for us to go ahead and put that all together, let's go ahead and take a look at our formal definitions. Let's see what we have. Alright, so question 1 here, what is a t-distribution? This is a type of distribution that closely resembles a normal distribution that includes n-1 degrees of freedom, with the population standard deviation being unknown. So in this case here, we won't be given information here regarding the population standard deviation. We will be given information regarding the sample standard deviation, because we're now taking a sample size, extrapolating that to a population for a confidence interval. But it's going to be dependent on these n-1 degrees of freedom. And if you can figure out here, n here is the sample size that we take here into account, regardless of whatever survey that we're doing here. We have a particular sample size that we're going to be working with, depending on how many people we ask. And of course, that will affect the distribution on some level. So, let's take a look at question 2 here and talk about the properties of said t-distribution. So, what are some properties of a t-distribution? So, the first one here is that a t-distribution is different for different degrees of freedom. So, from a picture perspective, from purely a picture perspective, I'll put the book here to the right. Let's see if I can grab a picture here really quick for you. So from a picture perspective, this is what it looks like here. The blue line here, it's kind of tough to see, but is the normal distribution. That's this top line here. But again, it's a little bit flatter. That's what a t-distribution kind of looks like here. It's a little bit flatter than a normal distribution. But again, this curve will change dependent on how many degrees of freedom that you have. So the number of the sample size here will certainly affect the type of distribution that you're going to have overall. The t-distribution here, as you can see by the picture, is centered at 0 and symmetric about 0. So, like the normal distribution is centered about a mean, some kind of value. Here, we have a specific value, and that value happens to be 0. You have negative to the left and positive to the right. Just like a regular t-distribution in any probability density curve, the area underneath the curve is 100% or 1. Okay, so pretty simple stuff. Anything really is just 100% if you add it all up together. And letter D, as n increases, the density curve of t gets closer to a normal density curve. So the higher amount of sample size that we have, the more and more of a normal symmetric curve that we're normally used to is it going to look like here. So again, if we compare 100 people to 1,000 people, 1,000 people, certainly a higher sample size, will look more like a normal distribution at the end of the day. Okay, so let's take a gander here. All right. Okay, so let's answer question 3 here. Question 3 says, how many degrees of freedom are there for a t-distribution? Now, as stated here before, we said the degrees of freedom here is equal to the sample size minus 1. So n minus 1 here will be dependent on the degrees of freedom. And we can also talk about critical values for a t-distribution. So how do we find critical values for a t-distribution? We can use a table in the back of the book. This is table 7 on page A14 from the back of the book to determine a manual value. Again, this doesn't contain all critical values for all degrees of freedom, but what does it look like here really quick? If you go to page A14, it's going to look something like this, as you can see here on the right-hand side of the screen. You have degrees of freedom here, and of course the distribution in the right tail of the distribution. Okay. Again, it's a manual way. All these sets of values are all critical numbers depending on the degrees of freedom you're given. All right. Now, of course, one table is very limited in scope. So, in a sense, we're just going to be using the calculation to find literally any confidence interval is what we're really after here. So, this is just in case if they do ask you a question, but I try to keep it just for, confidence intervals and whatnot. Okay. Let's go back for a second. Okay, so let's take a good look here at the meat and potatoes of today's section. Let's take a look at question 5. Question 5 asks, how do we construct a confidence interval for the mean when the population standard deviation is unknown? Okay, so we're not given a population standard deviation here. We're going to be using a calculator function called t-interval, and we'll talk about that as we do some examples here together. But here we have the margin of error. Again, if we want to find the margin of error, we find it with the critical value that we talked about earlier, times the sample standard deviation, that's why we have this s here, divided by the square root of the sample size, which is n in this instance. Okay. And as mentioned here, that's what we get. Okay. Now that's all well and good. And that's perfectly fine. But what we need to do now is to go ahead and use an example here, and let's go ahead and see how we can construct a confidence interval, using the calculator, and of course be able to go a little bit further than that. All right. So, come back to this guy. But let's go ahead and do question 28 here. So question 28 is going to be our example here from the book. Go ahead and read this off together, and we'll do it. All right. Number 28, hungry or thirsty? How much time do Americans spend eating or drinking? Suppose for a random sample of 1,001 Americans, age 15 or over, the mean amount of time spent eating or drinking per day is 1.22 hours, with the standard deviation of 0.65 hours. We're just going to do skip to one part here. We'll say letter C, determine and interpret a 95% confidence interval for the mean amount of time Americans age 15 or older spend eating and drinking each day. Okay, now for this particular part here, we need to take away some important pieces of information. First of all, we're given here the mean. The sample mean here is given to us as 1.22. The sample standard deviation is going to equal 0.65. We are also given here the size of our sample size. This is going to be 1,001 with a 95% confidence interval. So, there we go. All right, so we're going to do this here together. All right, we're going to find this particular confidence interval. I'll interpret it afterwards, but let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so first things first here. Let's go ahead and take out our calculator here. Okay. Okay, so once you have your calculator out, please take your calculator out. Once you have your calculator out in front of you, please type in got it in the chat. Please type in got it in the chat. Let's just see who's here and who's not too. Please type got it in the chat if you have your calculator in front of you. So Strolling's here today. See who else is here in the chat. We'll just probably talk to all right. Looks like I'm just talking with you today, Strolling. I don't know who else is in here. I kind of do, but just depends if they want to speak or not. All right. Now, if you have your calculator in front of you there, Strolling. All right. Let's go ahead and go through the button presses here about how to. Oh, there we go, Bill. There you are. All right, both Strolling and Bill. I'll talk to both of you. There you go. All right, so Strolling and Bill, first thing I would like you guys to do here is go ahead and hit the stat key here. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the stat key, and we're gonna go over to tests. All right, and we're gonna go down to number 8, which says T interval. So scroll down to number 8, which says T interval, and hit enter. Okay. I would like both of you, Strolling and Bill, to type yes in the chat once you get to this submenu. Oh, Sanla's here. All right. Please have your calculator out Sanla. We're going to be doing calculator portions here now. All right, strolling. Bill? All right, Sanla, take a... Got it? Okay, good. All right, Sanla, do you have this sub menu on your screen? Or are you not sure how to get that on your calculator? Go to stat. And then, tests. Okay, hang on a sec. I need you to be on the same page here. I want you to do that on the calculator there. Hit the stat key. Scroll over to tests and go to number 8 T interval. And you should be on the same screen that I'm at right now. Let me tell me when you got there. Okay, perfect. All right. So for the three of you here, we're now on this screen. Now, as you can see here at the top of the screen, okay, we have two things at the very top of the screen for input. We have data and stats. Now, depending on what kind of problem that you're given here, you're going to pick one of these two options. As for number 28 here, we were given the mean, the sample standard deviation, the sample mean, the sample standard deviation, the sample size, and the confidence level. So what we want to pick is we're going to go ahead and pick stats. We're going to go ahead and pick stats here. So highlight stats and hit enter since we are given stats here in this problem. Okay. All right, now you may have some stuff in here. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. All right. What we're going to go through here is after we go to stats, we're going to go ahead and enter in our numbers here. The first number that we need to enter in is going to be our sample mean. All right, that's the very first number here. So that's going to be 1.22. That's going to go in that specific spot right there. The next number here that we're going to plug into the calculator is SX, which represents the sample standard deviation. That's going to be 0.65. All right, so that's going to be perfect. And here is our sample size. So this is where we put 1001. And then finally, we put in our confidence level. Now this automatically should default to 0.95 for 95%. But if there's something different there, go ahead and type in 0.95 here. And you should be fine. And we want to just go to calculate. And we'll see what we get. Alright. So the confidence interval we got here is 1.1797 and 1.2603. All right, you three. If you got this confidence interval on your screen, type in "got it" in the chat. All right, Strolling got it. Let's see if Bill and Sanla also got it on their calculators. Bill, Sanla, do you have the answer on your calculator? I don't know if there's a delay in the, I don't know if there's a delay in the stream, but... All right, so let's try this again. Hit the stat key here, Sanla. Go to tests. Go to number 8. Now, did you guys go to stats? Did you guys go to stats here? If you went to stats here, this is what you should see on your screen. You should see an X bar, an SX, an N, and the C level here for confidence interval. So you should see an area for confidence interval. So one thing do not do, please. Please, Bill and Sanla. It is not t-test. It is t-interval, number 8 on the calculator. Okay? That's why I asked if you got to that submenu. But it doesn't look like you got to that submenu right. Because it sounds like you did t-test instead of t-interval. Or maybe you did z-interval. I'm not sure. But, you guys gotta listen carefully here, okay? Because I need to go through this carefully. Alright? You guys gotta make sure you push the right buttons here. Alright? It says t-interval. Follow the directions. I put that up in chat, okay? I want you to have if you go over to stats here, go ahead and hit enter on stats and copy the numbers you see here on the screen. And then hopefully you should get the same answer that I did on the calculator. Alright, Sanla got it? Alright, Bill, did you get it? Okay, good stuff. Alright. Okay, now, let's talk about the next part here. We found the confidence interval. Okay, great. So we did the button presses of which to do that. Alright, that sounds perfectly fine. Okay, so what I would like to do next, of course, is to find the other half of this particular question. Remember that here in part C, we just can find the numbers here, but we also have to interpret said interval as well. So we need to talk about the interpretation of the interval. What does it mean? Just like we talked about here in the last section. So let's go over to the handout here. That's where I want to go. Okay. So how do we go ahead and interpret this confidence interval? Well, here's how we go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and follow the template. Just like we had a template from last time, we now have another template here that will be just as good for these type of problems. So we are 95% confident. So again, we are blank percent confident, depends on the confidence level, that the mean time or mean distance, or this could be anything. I put that in parentheses. It could be the mean time, the mean distance, the mean amount, or whatever. It could be any of those things. The mean blank of all, okay, very important, the mean blank of all, and in this case, the context here, being Americans 15 and over, spent eating and drinking, is between 1.1797 and 1.2603 hours. Okay, so again, you'll be asked these questions here in the homework about how do you interpret this confidence interval. Well, here's the template about how we can break it down and make it easier to go ahead and do. We're 95% confident that the mean time of all American 15 or over spent eating and drinking is between 1.1797 and 1.2603 hours. Okay. Are there any questions about that? Any questions, Sanla? You have a question? Okay. Go ahead, Stroller. That's a great question. I think the next example will help. That's a very good question, Strolling. I think the next example will certainly showcase the difference. So how about if I do the next example, and I'll show you what the difference between stats and data is, alright? But a very fair question nonetheless. Alright, so to answer your question there, Strolling, let's take a look at another example from the textbook, and you'll see what the difference is between those two functions. So let's take a good look here at number 33. Okay, so let's look at 33. Okay, so 33, let's go ahead and read this out here. It says, the following data represents the repair cost for low-impact collisions in a simple random sample of mini and micro vehicles, such as the Chevy Aveo or Mini Cooper. Alright. Let's look at letter C here. Alright. We're going to construct a 95% confidence interval. Construct and interpret a 95% confidence interval for the population mean cost of repair. Okay. So, let's go ahead and at least write down a couple of things that we do know. What we do know here is that we have a 95% confidence interval. That part is true. We need a 95% confidence interval. And then finally, we also have a sample size here of how many values? 1, 2, 3, 5, 10. Okay, so we have 10 repair costs. Okay, now I want to point out one important thing here. Okay, we don't have, unfortunately for us here in this problem, we are not given a sample mean or a sample standard deviation. We're not given that here. We're just given a data set, and then we're just pretty much saying, okay, go figure it out. So that's what we're going to go do. We're gonna go figure it out. Alright? Let's go ahead and see how we can go ahead and do that here in this instance. Alright. So let's take out our calculators again. Alright? Okay, and what I would like you to do here first is to go ahead and hit the stat key here. And go over to edit. I'm going to go to edit. Now, you may have stuff entered into your lists here from before, so I want you to go ahead and highlight the list, hit clear, and hit enter to clear out your list. We're going to clear out all our lists, okay? So again, highlight the list, hit clear, and enter if you have stuff in your lists. I'm just going to go ahead and put up the book here on the right-hand side. Okay. Now, underneath list number 1, we're going to enter in all the values that you see here in the example. So let's go ahead and put those in. Okay. Alright, there should be just 10 numbers in there. Okay, once you guys have entered in all your data in your calculator, just like you see here on the screen, I would like you to enter in, just say yes in the chat once you have everything entered in your calculator. So type yes in the chat if you have all this entered in the calculator. Done? Okay. Alright, Strolling's done. And we'll just wait for Bill and Sanla to enter in their numbers in their calculator and tell me that they're done. Alright, Sanla is done. Alright, we'll just wait on Bill to enter in those numbers, and then we will proceed. Okay, perfect. All right, everyone is done. Okay, great. Okay, so what I would like you three to do next is I would like you three to go ahead and hit the second key and hit the mode key. We're going to quit back to the main screen, just making sure we don't enter in any other numbers. We just want those same 10 numbers. Okay, so the next part we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing we did here for the last problem. We're going to hit the stat key. We'll go over to tests. We're going to go down to number 8. The second key and the mode key. So right next to each other there, Strolling. Second and mode. That'll quit you to the main screen. I always make it a habit to quit to the main screen, so that way I don't enter anything wrong. Alright, again, back on the main screen here, go over to tests. I want you to go down to number 8, which says T interval. Alright, we're going to go over this time, we're going to go over to data. Okay, so this time, since we were given a data set for the problem, now this is the part where we use data instead of stats, okay? We use stats if we're given the mean and standard deviation, but since we were given a data set, we're going to go over to data here and hit enter. This will be what it will look like in this instance. Okay. So now, once we see this, we have the 3 options here. We have the list, and we have frequency and confidence level. Alright, first things first here, the list. Now the list here, if it's different than your calculator, and I don't know if it is, but, or if this is blank, the default's to L1, but if it's not L1, then you can change that hitting second and 1 for L1. But make sure that the list is that usually your first list, L1. Alright, so that's what we have for list. Next here is frequency. Do not touch this number. Leave it as the number 1. Okay, you will never change this at all. Leave it alone. Okay, frequency should be 1. Leave it alone. You'll have nothing to do with it. Alright, and then here we have the confidence level. The confidence level here will be 95% once again. It defaults to 95%, but if it's something different, just use the corresponding decimal to it. In this case, I'll just retype 0.95 for 95% confidence interval. We go ahead and hit calculate. Okay. Let's go to... okay. So here we have a confidence interval of 1035, 1035.8, and 2477.2. Our confidence interval here. Now again, what they do give us here in this particular circumstance is they do give us the mean. So the mean here is given to us as 1756.50. And they do give us a sample standard deviation as well after the sample mean of 1007.4542. Again, they just find that in our stead, so that shouldn't be a problem. And of course the requisite sample size, which was 10 values. Okay. Alright, so before we move forward here, please type "got it" in the chat if you got this answer on your calculator. Please type "got it" in the chat if you got this answer in the calculator. Alright, Sanla got it. Let's see if Strolling and Bill got it. Alright, Strolling got it. And Bill got it. Perfect. Okay, all 3 of you got it. Great. Okay, now comes the last part here, at least, for this particular part. And that is, of course, we not only find the confidence interval, but once again, we have to interpret said confidence interval. So, looking at the interpretation here, go to the interpretation. What is the interpretation of the confidence interval? What is the interpretation of the confidence interval? Type that out in chat. What would be the interpretation of the confidence interval? And the context here, by the way, just to let you know, I'm going to just put this up very briefly. The context here is going to be the repair costs for low impact collisions of micro vehicles. So, repair cost for low impact collisions of micro vehicles is the context here. You guys think? Interpretation of the confidence interval. You're 95% confident that the mean repair cost. That's close, Strolling. Be very careful, though. Read the template very carefully, Strolling. So, it's almost correct, but not quite. We're 95% confident that all the mean all the mean repair costs? Or the mean repair costs for all? There's a difference between the wording, and I know it seems a little asinine, but it's important. We're 95% confident that the mean repair cost for low impact collisions of all is between 1035. So where you want to put for all here is like the mean repair cost of all, and in this case, micro and other type of vehicles. So here's how it should look like here. You guys are pretty close, or getting close there. So we are 95% confident. All right, that part's true. The mean cost of all vehicles, repair costs, so mean repair cost, really. You can put repair cost, it doesn't matter. The mean repair cost of all mini and micro vehicles and low impact collisions, you can keep that off, it's whatever, is between 1035 and 2477. So the mean repair cost of all, and then we have the context here after that of mini and micro vehicles and low impact collisions being between two values here, these two values. All right, so that is going to be the interpretation for that. So I just want you to notice here, that's how we want to phrase it every time. I want you to use a consistent consistent interpretation, because that's how they're going to ask, that's how they're going to phrase it in the homework as well, is using that same kind of wording. So I just want you to be aware about that, so you pick the right one when you try the homework problems. So important there in that case is why I'm kind of pointing it out there. All right. Any questions about that so far? Any questions about that example? So the previous example we did, that was going to be stats, and then this question with the data set will use data. So hopefully that'll answer your question there, Strolling, about that part. No? Okay. Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, just sometimes I don't know because I'm looking at it in my monitor up close. So let me know if the text is too small for you, and I can zoom in and make it bigger. So I apologize about that. I didn't know. I could make this bigger. It's not a problem. I just didn't know whether it was like that for you. I cannot see what you're seeing, so that's why I'm kind of doing it this way because it's like in front of me right directly, but how you view it on your computer is completely different. Okay. Just let me know. Just let me know in the future, and then I'll just change the zoom. That's fine. It's no big deal. Okay. I want to look at letter D. I'm gonna put the book here to the left here. All right. I'm gonna look at letter D here. I'm gonna answer a couple of other questions that you may see on the homework for this section. So just a little bits and bobs here that we want to do. Letter D says, suppose you obtain a simple random sample of 10 Mini Coopers that were in low impact collisions and determine the cost of repair. Do you think a 95% confidence interval will be wider or narrower? In this case, if you see a question like this, the word is narrower. Now, the reason why this is narrower is because you only picked 10 Mini Coopers. So, in this case, you had a cross-section of cars, like the Chevy, Aveo, or other cars along with the Mini Cooper. But if you only pick one type of car, that means you're going to get a similar repair cost for every type of car. They're all going to be hovering right around the same amount for low-impact collisions, okay? They're not going to be kind of crazy all over the place in terms of the actual value, since you're already determining the repair cost of every similar vehicle, or all the same vehicle. So the answer is narrower, since the premise is you're taking a cross-section of a one type of car as opposed to many types of cars. Now, the other thing that you have to be careful about, and I forgot to mention this here, but I'll also mention this again, is actually the last question, part D to the last question. You may also get a question like this, and I'm going to go ahead and state what this is. Letter D for the last question says, could the interval from what we got here be used to estimate the mean amount of time a 9-year-old American spends eating or drinking each day? Now, in this particular instance, the answer to this is no, okay? And you may get at least some multiple choice possibly associated with this question. But the reason why it's no is because the context of the question only dealt with people who were 15 years of age or older. So you cannot take a survey that was made for people who were 15 and older and extrapolate that to a 9-year-old. That doesn't make any sense, okay? So the context has to fit. The person in question has to fit within the context of the question. If that's not the case, like a 9-year-old, I can't make that determination for a 9-year-old in comparison to 15-year-olds. It's just two different types of people, and 9-year-olds were not included in the study. So, hence why the answer is no. I cannot make that estimation here in this case. All right, so if you get that type of question, you'll know how to answer that. This is, again, based on context. All right. Any questions over section 9.2? Any questions over section 9.2? No questions? All right. If there are no questions, I will go ahead and move forward then. The last section here is section 9.3, and section 9.3 is just a recap section of sections 9.1 and 9.2. So what I'm going to do now is to recap those two sections in particular, So that way you at least note the difference between both of those sections and how to attack those type of problems. All section 9.3 is just supplemental problems reflecting 9.1 and 9.2. So let's go ahead and take a look here and how we can look at both sections here. What we were given and what we need to answer and all that stuff. All right. So in section 9.1, we talked about a population proportion P. Okay, so we use population proportion P here in this case. All right, and we need, again with the population proportion P, again we ask about amount of people some questions. Okay, we said, hey, do you like this thing or whatever. Again, we have an X, the number of people who said yes to our question, and N, again, a sample size. Again, we also need a confidence level since we're establishing a confidence interval. Now, the specific calculator function that we used here in section 9.1 is we use the one prop z int, okay, found in the same little menu as t interval, as we did today. All right, so we also did that. Again, we also had formulas here to find the necessary sample size, so you can refer back to those. We only did like a couple examples of that. But more importantly is the interpretation of said confidence interval. So the template here is very simple. So I just kind of put a generic template here. So the generic template is we are blank percent confident that the proportion of all, some context, is between some value and another value. Okay, so at least in a very generic interpretation of the confidence interval, this is essentially what it's going to look like. You're blank percent confident that the proportion of all blank, some context is between blank and blank. All right, that's what the population proportion P. In today's lesson, we used a t-distribution. Okay, that's the big difference here. We're not using proportions. We're using another type of distribution. Again, it does need a sample size n to find the degrees of freedom. We did use the t-interval function here today. All right, for our guy. Again, you can use stats or the data set. So we did one example of each, one for stats and one for data set. Again, this does assume that the population standard deviation is unknown. Okay, so we're given a sample standard deviation, a sample mean, a sample standard deviation, and a sample size. And again, the generic interpretation of this is going to be, as you can see here at the bottom of the screen, we are blank percent confident that the population mean for all, some type of context, all right, is between some number and another number. All right, so we're blank percent confident that the population mean for all, some random context, is between blank and blank. So again, that's kind of like essentially this is kind of like a brief synopsis of both sections that we've done here in Chapter 9, as there's only 2 real sections that we have to do for this particular part. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of rundown, if you rewatch this video here, you'll be able to see. Again, you'll see this synopsis at the end of the video, so it'll give you a good idea about what we covered in both parts. Hopefully make it a little bit easier to do the stuff in Chapter 9. All right, questions about that? Are we able to print section 9.3? 9.3 is just the 9.3 is just this. So how do you know which method to use? You should be able to print out section 9.3. I think it came with 9.2. If not, you can just screenshot this if you like. I'll make this a little smaller and you can screenshot it. This is from one of my other handouts, so you can ignore this 9.3. We're not doing this part here, don't worry about. Just screenshot for this part here. It's a little weird, but just roll with me here, strolling. There we go. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So that will take care of it for today. All right. Great job, you guys. I'm really happy with the progress that we made. Just to let you know, that's the end of chapter 9. So we got 2 more chapters to do after this. Got chapter 10 and chapter 4. So we're well on our way to finishing up early, and we should be able to take a review and some questions even after we finish up this last kind of unit here. So we're getting there. We're getting there. Chapter 10, chapter 4 will be our last 2 guys that we're going to be doing. So we're well on our way to finishing on time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate the time. Again, don't forget, you got your test and your homework due at the thing. Will we have a final covering everything? Yes. There's already a final exam that's already posted, and that does cover as a comprehensive final. Sunla. So, yeah. But for covering, look, that was look. I told you that from day one. you can't get mad at me for something that was there from day one. Day one, I said there was going to be a cumulative final. I don't know what else to tell you. I understand. But you have the test here today, and again, give yourself time. So again, you have the test here that's due tonight at 11:59, as is the homework. All right. So again, just don't try and do stuff at the last minute. I know it's a little bit tough, but here's the good part here, Sanla. At the end, we are going to have some time here to go over lots and lots of questions from lots and lots of sections. To cover stuff for the final. So I'm not going to leave you hanging without anything. We will have review time, certainly, for questions and whatnot. So if you're struggling with a few pieces of concepts or material, or you have homework questions, yeah, once we're done with this last unit here, with the last couple of chapters, then certainly we will be covering questions from anywhere and everywhere as you please. Okay, so if you want to ask me anything, that's going to be kind of like, hey, you ask me whatever, and we'll go through examples of everything. Okay, so, yeah, I like to give as much time at the end here so we can get you covered for the final exam. All right? All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, good job today, everybody. All right, very nice work. I want to thank everybody here for coming on just to stream. If you have questions for me, you guys know exactly where to find me. I'm on Discord or on email. All right, again, good luck on your test tonight, or again, finishing up your assignments for tonight. And I hope everyone has an absolutely wonderful weekend. All right, and as always, everybody, I want to thank, of course, you 3, Strolling, Bill, and Sanla, for coming on here to stream. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, all 3 of you, stay sane. All right, have yourself a wonderful day. All right, a wonderful night, really. So evening time. Have yourself a wonderful evening, and we will see you all again next week. Okay? Take care, everybody, and we will see you all later. Have a great one, everyone. Take care. Bye. Good luck, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Contact me if you need help. All right. Have a great one, everyone. Bye.